Super weapons, by their very nature, aren't usually all that subtle. Star Wars has plenty of them, most of which fall into the category of planet killers, Death Star-esque weapons with the ability to annihilate entire planets. Such weapons are usually more for show than anything, as a fleet of warships with heavy turbo lasers is capable of doing comparable damage. But planet killers aren't the only super weapons out there or the most terrifying. In this video, we're going to be talking about a super weapon that predated the Republic itself, a device with terrible potential and many sinister secrets. In this video, we'll be talking about the Starforge. The Starforge was the greatest creation of the Rakata, the ancient builders whose infinite empire once ruled the whole galaxy. It was a weapon of tremendous power, but not in the traditional sense. Instead of destroying planets or anything of that sort, the Starforge's power was creation. It consumed stars and the power of the dark side, using both to create an endless supply of war material. It was the apex of the infinite empire, and it provided the Rakata with an unending fleet of warships with which to conquer the entire galaxy. But the Starforge was more than just a giant factory. It was tainted, and to understand how it came to be that way, we need to take a look at the history of the Infinite Empire. The Rakata evolved on a small world orbiting a distant star in the unknown regions, in a patch of space called the Tempered Wastes, as it was otherwise almost entirely devoid of stars. Their homeworld has been known by many names, from the Unknown World to Rakata Prime, but the natives called it Lehon. Lehon was a tropical paradise, a world of wide, warm oceans dotted with countless islands. Many species would have found it pleasant. It's almost ironic then that it was home to such a brutal species as the Rakata. The Rakata were warriors, a race of bloodthirsty cannibals that feasted on the flesh of their enemies. They were still in a state of relative primitivism when they were discovered by the Kwa, an ancient spacefaring species from Dathomir that traveled the galaxy using stargates. The Kwa believed they could tame the bestial instincts of the Rakata by opening them up to the Force, for they sensed that the Rakata were, as a species, strongly Force sensitive. But this backfired disastrously. To the horror of the Kwa, the Rakata gravitated immediately toward the dark side and waged war on their would-be helpers, seeking to steal their technology. The Kwa retreated and destroyed their stargates, but it was too late. The Rakata found other ways to unleash themselves on the galaxy. It was the Rakata who invented the first hyperdrives. Their hyperdrives sought out worlds with strong Force signatures, allowing the Rakata to conquer planets across the entire galaxy. They enslaved any species they encountered for use either in manual labor or as batteries. As the Rakata were, by and large, Darksiders, their technology was powered by the dark side of the Force, and so they developed techniques that harnessed the dark side emotions of their slaves and converted it into energy. The Infinite Empire, as the Rakata began to call their civilization, was built on and fueled by hatred. The Rakata became so powerful that they even sought to challenge the Celestials, a mysterious ancient race that once dominated the galaxy, building entire star systems from scratch and shaping the universe as they willed. But not even they could stop the Infinite Empire. Either through war or by choice, they had vanished entirely from the galaxy by 33,600 BBY, a little over 1,000 years after the founding of the Infinite Empire. Other ancient civilizations also fell victim to the Rakata. In one case, the Rafa of Sharu deliberately reverted to a state of primitivism to hide from the Infinite Empire. The Infinite Empire reached its peak in 30,000 BBY. At the time, it contained over 500 worlds spread across the entire galaxy, with a population consisting of 10 billion Rakata and 1 trillion slaves. As their hunger for power grew, it was in that same year that the Rakata began to work on what would be their greatest creation, the Starforge. Slaves from 100 different worlds were brought to the heart of the Infinite Empire, and above Abu, Lehon's son, they were put to work making a massive space station, the likes of which had never been seen before. When it was finally completed, the Starforge became the crown jewel of the Infinite Empire, and the Rakata believed it would ensure the immortality of their civilization. The Starforge was colossal, equipped with countless starship hangars, cavernous internal halls, and production facilities that could be quickly retooled to produce nearly anything. It wasn't particularly well defended. The only onboard weapons it had were some turbolaser batteries around the hangars, but it made up for this with its incredible production facilities. The Starforge was capable of producing pretty much anything in near limitless quantities, fueled only by solar matter drained from Abu and the power of the dark side. The production capabilities of the Starforge, when put in perspective, are rather terrifying on their own. Under the influence of one powerful enough to operate the Starforge, it could churn out endless supplies of everything from equipment and small arms to starfighters and warships. And while the Starforge couldn't produce living beings, it could produce droids, and warships designed to be crewed purely by droids. In this manner, any single being capable of harnessing the Starforge's power could create an army large enough to conquer the entire universe. But as we mentioned earlier, this wasn't the only power of the Starforge. The Rakata left the Starforge tainted, making it into an artifact of the dark side which corrupted those that used it. In many ways, it was more like a living creature than a machine, and it hungered. The Starforge fed on death, and it consumed its users, drawing on their negative emotions to feed itself. It took a being of immense power to use the Starforge. Anyone else who tried would be destroyed by the machine. Their wills would break, their minds would be consumed, and their bodies would become nothing more than empty husks. But the Starforge's influence wasn't limited to its users, something the Rakata learned too late. As the fleets and armies of the Starforge churned out and spread across the Infinite Empire, its influence spread with them. It corrupted the Rakata as a species, and it began to feed on all of them, intensifying the dark side within them and amplifying their negative emotions, their savagery, and bitterness. The Starforge sought to spread death, and over the millennia, it began to turn the Infinite Empire on itself. By 25,500 BBY, the Rakata began to turn on each other, first through plotting against each other, and then through petty conflicts that spread across the Empire. Then, in 25,200 BBY, by chance or by design of one of the slave species, something else began to spread as well, a plague that stripped the Rakata of the Force, leaving them unable to operate their technology. The Rakata was severely weakened, and the slaves saw their chance at revenge. Revolutions began happening across the Infinite Empire, and those Rakata who could, fled back to Lehon. Those who couldn't became trapped on whatever worlds they were stationed on by the plague and experienced painful deaths at the hands of their former slaves. As the remnants of the Infinite Empire regrouped on Lehon, the Starforge orchestrated one of its most destructive acts. It consumed Lehon, filling the warlords that were left on the planet with bitterness and rage and setting them against one another. Rakatan society was ravaged by war, until finally the warlords turned to weapons of mass destruction. They destroyed each other and nearly took the entire planet with them. Only a few scattered tribes of Rakata survived, and they quickly fell back to more primitive ways, scattered across small islands and isolated by the oceans of their world. For the next 20,000 years, the Starforge sat abandoned and idling near Lehon. Its systems, like many pieces of Rakatan technology, were self-repairing, and so it was intact when, in 3959 BBY, it was discovered by Darth Revan and Darth Malik, newly anointed Dark Lords of the Sith. Seeking a foundation on which to build their new Sith Empire, they used the Starforge to turn their small collection of ships into a fleet the likes of which the Republic had never seen. The Republic nearly fell before the might of the Starforge, but once again, the space station proved to be the undoing of its users. Revan was weary of the Starforge's effect on its users and used it as little as possible to prevent himself from being corrupted, but Malak had no such hesitations. He became corrupted, and he eventually betrayed his master and claimed rule of the Sith Empire himself. He came to rely on the Starforge almost entirely and turned Revan's carefully calculated campaign against the Republic into a war of destruction. His forces became notorious for casually slaughtering billions, and Malak's reign of terror only ended with the Battle of Rakata Prime, when the crew of the Ebon Hawk and a Republic assault force finally destroyed the Starforge, bringing an end to its destructive influence on the galaxy. So, that was the story of the Starforge, the bloodthirsty super weapon that drove entire civilizations to lay waste to themselves. But what do you think? Would you like to see more videos about the Rakata in the future? Make sure you let us know in the comments section below. And as per usual, just before you go, please do check out some of the links in the description below. If you're interested, we have a Discord where you can chat with other Star Wars fans such as yourself, a Geetsly's gaming network where you can play games with other Star Wars fans such as yourself, and a Patreon if you want to help support the channel more than you already are by watching this video. And by donating, you get access to a special behind the scenes Discord where you can see exactly how our team works. Anyways guys, as always, thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you in the next video.